The sunflowers my son brought for Father's Day should have been a moment of joy. But his innocent question, Dad, Nicole's still bringing your $200 each month, right? Revealed a devastating truth. While I'd spent 10 months grateful for church food pantries, my daughter-in-law had been weaving a web of lies that went far deeper than stolen money. What I uncovered about Nicole's true intentions still sends chills down my spine. Before I tell you the truth about my daughter-in-law, let me know where you're watching from, because what she did next will haunt you. The morning sun filtered through my kitchen window here in Decatur, casting shadows across the worn linoleum. Father's Day had been quiet since Martha passed, but I'd grown comfortable with solitude. At 67, I found peace in small routines, strong coffee, yesterday's newspaper, and tending the garden that kept me fed when money ran thin. I was organizing canned goods from the church pantry when I heard an expensive engine in my driveway. Through the window, I watched my son Alec unfold from his BMW sunflowers in hand. Despite running Knox Tech Solutions, he still remembered his old man. "Happy Father's Day, Dad," Alex said, stepping through my screen door. His designer shirt was already wilting in the Georgia humidity. He set the sunflowers on my kitchen table, the same one where Martha and I shared 30 years of morning coffee. "These are beautiful, son. You didn't need to drive all the way out here." Alec loosened his tie, glancing around my modest kitchen. I caught him noting the church donation boxes, generic cereal utility bills stacked by the toaster. His expression grew concerned. "Dad, I've been thinking—" He settled into Martha's old chair. "Nicole's been bringing you the $4,200 every month, right? I want to make sure you're comfortable." The words hit like a physical blow. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. $4,200. For 10 months, I'd been stretching church donations, clipping coupons, choosing between heating bills and medications. "So, son," I managed, voice barely steady, "I haven't received any money." Before Alec could respond, heels clicked on my porch. Nicole appeared like she'd stepped from a magazine silk blouse, perfect hair, radiant smile. "You two are having such a sweet Father's Day chat," she said, honey smooth. She kissed Alec's cheek, expensive perfume filling the air. "Drew, I hope you're enjoying those meals I've been bringing. Don't worry about this month's envelope. I'll have it Tuesday, just like always." I stared at her mind, reeling. Meals, envelopes. In 10 months of struggling, Nicole had visited maybe 3 times, always empty-handed, except for small talk and that practiced smile. Alec relaxed, reaching for Nicole's hand. "See, Dad, Nicole's been taking care of everything." I nodded slowly, forcing neutral expression while thoughts raced. Something was terribly wrong, and I was the only one who knew it. "Of course," I said quietly. "Nicole's been very thoughtful." As they prepared to leave, promising a proper family dinner soon, I watched their car disappear. The sunflowers sat bright on my table, but couldn't chase away the cold realization settling in my chest. $42,000. That should have reached me over 10 months. Instead, I'd lived on charity while my daughter-in-law lied to my son's face. I pulled out my old expense notebook and wrote today's date at the top of a fresh page. If Nicole thought she was dealing with just another trusting old man, she was about to learn otherwise. Dawn was breaking over Decatur when I laced up my walking shoes and headed for the front door. 30 years of managing corporate accounts had taught me that hunches meant nothing without hard evidence. And yesterday's revelation demanded the kind of systematic investigation I'd once applied to quarterly audits. The Georgia Community Credit Union sat just 4 blocks from my house, a modest brick building where I'd banked since Martha and I first moved to the neighborhood. Inside, the familiar smell of coffee and paper reminded me of countless mornings spent balancing ledgers in my old office. "Morning, Mr. Knox," smiled Janet, the teller who'd helped me through the paperwork after Martha's passing. "What can I do for you today?" I slid my worn passbook across the counter. "Janet, I need you to pull up my complete transaction history. Specifically, I'm looking for any transfers from my son Alec's accounts over the past 10 months. Her fingers flew across the keyboard brow, furrowing as she scrolled through screen after screen of data. The silence stretched until she looked up apologetically. "I'm sorry, Mr. Knox, but there's absolutely nothing. No transfers, no deposits from any Knox accounts. Just your Social Security direct deposit and a few small interest payments." The confirmation hit harder than I'd expected, even though I'd known what she'd find. I thanked Janet and walked home slowly, my mind already shifting into the analytical mode that had served me well in my accounting days. Back in my kitchen, I cleared Martha's old recipe box from the counter and spread out a legal pad. At the top, I wrote, Nicole Timeline, and began reconstructing every interaction from the past 10 months. March 15th, brief visit claimed she was just checking in. May 2nd brought store-bought cookies, mentioned being so busy with charity work. Each memory felt different, now filtered through suspicion. 3 days later, Nicole's white Mercedes pulled into my driveway. Through the window, I watched her emerge wearing what looked like a $500 dress designer handbag slung over her shoulder. The contrast with my church pantry breakfast felt almost obscene. Drew, how lovely to see you, she called, approaching with a small potted plant. I thought this would brighten your kitchen windowsill. I accepted the gift graciously, noting the expensive nursery tag still attached. That's thoughtful, Nicole. Business must be treating you well. Her laugh was musical practiced. Oh, you know how it is. Alex spoils me terribly. After she left, I added the interaction to my growing timeline, then reached for the phone. The number for Knox Tech Solutions was still programmed from when I'd helped Alex set up his first business loan. Knox Tech, this is Sarah speaking. Good morning, Sarah. This is Drew Knox, Alex's father. I'm trying to verify some family financial arrangements, and I need to speak with someone in accounting about regular transfers. Oh, Mr. Knox, Alex mentioned you so often. For transfer verification, you'd want to speak with Kenneth Brooks, our chief accountant. Let me get you his direct number. As I copied down Kenneth's contact information, something shifted in my chest. This wasn't just about missing money anymore. This was about truth, about the foundation of trust that held families together. I hung up the phone and stared at Kenneth Brooks' name written in my careful script. Tomorrow, I'd make the call that would either confirm my worst fears or prove me wrong. Either way, I was finally going to learn what had happened to $42,000. Tuesday morning arrived gray and humid. I'd rehearsed what to say to Kenneth Brooks, but when I dialed at 9 sharp, my hands were steady. Kenneth Brooks speaking. Mr. Brooks, this is Drew Knox. We need to talk about financial discrepancies involving my son's account. A pause, then his voice dropped. Mr. Knox, I was wondering when someone would call. Can you meet this afternoon? You need to see what I've discovered. 3 hours later, a silver Honda pulled into my driveway. Kenneth Brooks was a lean man in his 50s, carrying a heavy leather briefcase. His handshake was firm, expression grave. Mr. Knox, I'm going to be direct, he said at my kitchen table. What I'm about to show you will be difficult to hear. He opened his briefcase and withdrew a thick folder. The first document bore my name in bold letters, but the account number was completely foreign. This account was opened 18 months ago using your social security number and driver's license copy, Kenneth explained. The signature matches yours perfectly, but I'm guessing you've never seen this paperwork. I studied the forged signature, blood growing cold. I've never opened any account except my savings at Georgia Community Credit Union. Kenneth nodded grimly, spreading more papers. Every month for 10 months, Alec has authorized $4,200 to what he believes is your account. The money goes here instead. Row after row of deposits, $4, $200 on the 18th of each month, like clockwork. $42,000 that should have kept me comfortable. But that's not all. Kenneth continued, producing another set. Nicole has access to our corporate American Express card. The receipts painted luxury I could barely comprehend. Spa treatments in Buckhead, $1,200. Weekend in Savannah, $3,600. Designer clothing, $8,000. The numbers climbed until my head spun. Corporate card shows $28,500 in unauthorized charges, Kenneth said quietly. Combined with the fraudulent account, we're looking at over $52,000. I leaned back, feeling suddenly older than 67. Why tell me this? Why not go straight to Alec? Kenneth's expression softened. I've been in accounting 25 years. I know the difference between mistakes and deliberate fraud. Your daughter-in-law is systematically stealing from both of you. Alec trusts her, completely signs whatever she puts in front of him. The weight of betrayal settled over me. This wasn't just about money. Nicole had looked me in the eye, accepting my gratitude while systematically draining resources meant for my care. What do you suggest? Legally, we have enough for fraud charges, Kenneth said. But family situations are complicated. You might want to confront her first. An idea formed, something that would give Nicole a chance to confess, while ensuring Alec witnessed the truth. Kenneth, would you help me with something I'm thinking about, hosting a family dinner this Sunday? Nothing confrontational, just a chance for Nicole to explain herself in front of my son. Kenneth smiled for the first time. Mr. Knox, I think that's exactly what this situation needs, and I'll make sure we have copies of everything just in case. As he packed his briefcase, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, the satisfaction of having an ally in the fight for truth. Sunday afternoon found me in my kitchen sleeves, rolled up and apron tied, preparing what might be the most important meal of my life. I'd chosen Alec's childhood favorites, pot roast, with carrots and potatoes, cornbread with honey butter, and Martha's famous peach cobbler. The familiar rhythm of cooking steadied my nerves as savory aromas filled the house. I set the dining room table with Martha's good china, the set we'd received as a wedding gift 40 years ago. Candles flickered softly, casting warm light across the polished wood. Everything had to feel natural, welcoming a loving father hosting his family for Sunday dinner. At 6 o'clock sharp, I heard car doors slam in the driveway. Through the lace curtains, I watched Alec help Nicole from his BMW. She emerged like she was stepping onto a red carpet, flowing silk dress, in emerald green diamond earrings, catching the evening light designer heels, clicking against my weathered walkway. "Dad, something smells incredible," Alec said, embracing me at the door. His face looked relaxed. For the first time in months, the stress lines around his eyes softened by the prospect of family time. Nicole glided in behind him, her smile radiant as always. "Drew, you've outdone yourself. This house feels so warm and inviting." As we settled around the table, I carved the roast and served generous portions. The conversation flowed easily, Alec's latest business expansion, Nicole's charity work, my garden's progress. I waited until we were deep into the main course guards, lowered by good food and wine. "Nicole, I was wondering," I said casually, passing the cornbread, "should I expect this month's envelope soon? I'm planning my grocery budget for next week." Nicole dabbed her lips with her napkin expression, serene. "Of course, Drew. I always bring it by on the 12th, just like clockwork." The words hung in the air for a heartbeat before Alec looked up from his plate. Brow furrowed. "The 12th? Honey, that's not right. I set up the automatic transfer for the 18th of every month. I remember specifically because that's when my payroll deposits clear." Nicole's fork paused halfway to her mouth. The color drained from her cheeks, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, you're right, darling. I misspoke. I meant the 18th, of course." But it was too late. The contradiction hung between us like a live wire. I rose calmly and walked to the sideboard where I'd placed Kenneth's folder earlier. "Actually, let's clear this up once and for all." I returned to the table and spread the bank statements across the white tablecloth like cards in a deadly game. "These are the transfer records from your company, Alec. Every month, $4,200 goes to an account bearing my name." I pointed to the highlighted entries. "But this isn't my account number." Alec leaned forward, wineglass forgotten. His eyes scanned the documents, confusion shifting to comprehension, then to something harder. "This account. Nicole, this has your signature on the opening paperwork." Nicole's hands began to tremble. I can explain." "Can you explain this too?" I produced the corporate credit card statements. $28,000 in personal charges on your company's American Express. Spa treatments, shopping sprees, luxury vacations. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Alec's face had gone white, his jaw clenched tight. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely controlled. "Nicole, tell me this isn't what it looks like. Tell me you didn't steal money meant for my father while he was eating donated food from the church." Nicole's carefully constructed facade finally cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks, smearing her perfect makeup. "I was going to pay it back," she whispered. "I just needed time." The business ventures they were supposed to work out. "Business ventures," Alec's voice rose. "You told me you were bringing him the money every month. You looked me in the eye and lied." "I never meant for it to go this far," Nicole sobbed. "I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed." I watched my son's world crumble as he stared at the woman he'd trusted completely. The pot roast grew cold on our plates, while the weight of $52,000 in theft settled over the table like a shroud. Nicole's confession hung in the air, but I knew this was only the beginning of a much longer reckoning. The dining room fell into the kind of silence that follows a devastating truth. Nicole's mascara had created dark streaks down her cheeks, but even through her tears, I could see her mind working, calculating her next move like a chess player who just lost her queen. "Please," she whispered, reaching across the table toward Alec's hands. "You have to understand, I never wanted to hurt anyone. I was trying to help. Alec pulled his hands away, his wedding ring catching the candlelight. Help by stealing from my father. Not stealing. Nicole's voice grew stronger, more urgent. Borrowing. I was managing our family finances, trying to make the money work harder for everyone. I had investment opportunities, business connections that could have tripled what Drew was receiving. She turned to me, eyes wide with manufactured sincerity. Drew, you know I care about you like my own father. Everything I did was with the best intentions. I was going to surprise you both with how much I'd grown that money. I studied her face, seeing the practiced performance of someone who'd talked her way out of trouble before. But underneath the tears and pleading something colder flickered the frustration of a predator whose prey had escaped the trap. If your intentions were so good, I said quietly, why did you lie about bringing me the money every month? Nicole's shoulders shook with fresh sobs. Because I was ashamed. The investments took longer than expected, and I didn't want you to worry. I thought I could fix everything before anyone noticed. Alec ran his hands through his hair, looking older than his 38 years. Nicole, this isn't some accounting error. You forged documents. You opened fake accounts. You stole over $50,000. I know, she gasped. But I can make it right. Give me a chance to prove I've changed. I'll return every penny starting tonight. The plea hung between us. I watched my son's face, seeing the war between his anger and his desperate hope that the woman he'd married wasn't the calculating thief the evidence suggested. How much can you return immediately? I asked. Nicole wiped her eyes, suddenly more composed. I can get $12,000 tonight. The rest, it'll take time to liquidate some investments, but I promise you'll have everything within 6 months. Alec looked at me, seeking guidance. Despite everything, I saw the love he still felt for her, the part of him that wanted to believe in redemption. One chance, I said finally. You return what you can now, and we'll give you a probationary period. But Nicole, if you disappoint us again, there won't be another conversation. There will only be lawyers and police. Relief flooded Nicole's features. Thank you, both of you. I won't let you down again. I'll prove that I can be the wife and daughter-in-law you deserve. She pulled out her phone, making arrangements to transfer $12,000 immediately. As she spoke to her bank, her tears dried up with remarkable speed. 2 hours later, as they prepared to leave, Nicole embraced me at the door. Thank you for believing in second chances, Drew. I'll spend every day earning back your trust. But as she walked toward the car, I caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw something that chilled me to the bone. The following Tuesday brought an unexpected knock. Nicole stood on my porch holding a large casserole dish, wearing the kind of warm smile that had once fooled us all. Drew, I made your favorite beef stew with cornbread. I thought it might help after all the stress we've caused. The aroma was incredible, reminding me of Martha's comfort foods. Despite everything, my stomach growled in response. That's very thoughtful, Nicole. Taking care of family is what matters most now, she replied, honey sweet. I want to show you and Alec that I'm committed to being the daughter-in-law you deserve. Over the next few weeks, Nicole's visits became routine. Every Tuesday and Friday, she'd arrive with homemade meals, chicken and dumplings, pot roast hearty soups, perfect for an elderly man living alone. She'd insist on heating everything herself, chatting pleasantly while working in my kitchen. The secret is in the seasoning, she'd say, stirring soup with careful attention. My grandmother's special herb blend. I found myself looking forward to her visits, despite lingering suspicions. The food was exceptional, and Nicole seemed genuinely reformed. When Alec joined us for Sunday dinners, she'd beam as he praised her dedication to family reconciliation. See, Dad, Nicole has a good heart, Alec would say. Sometimes people just need a second chance. But by the 4th week, something felt wrong. I'd wake with queasy stomach and persistent headaches. My appetite faded, and garden work left me exhausted and dizzy. Probably just stress catching up, Nicole suggested when I mentioned feeling unwell. Emotional trauma manifests physically, especially at your age. Maybe see Dr. Patterson. The doctor found nothing alarming, slightly elevated blood pressure, nothing unexpected for a man dealing with family crisis. He prescribed rest, suggesting delayed shock from recent betrayal. But symptoms worsened. Nausea became constant, accompanied by sharp abdominal pains that doubled me over. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks, clothes hanging loose on my shrinking frame. Nicole's concern seemed genuine. Drew, you're worrying me. Maybe try a different doctor, someone specializing in geriatric medicine. She brought lighter meals, broths, and puddings easier on my sensitive stomach. Each spoonful went down like medicine, and I was grateful for her persistence. You have to keep your strength up, she'd insist sitting beside me. Alec would never forgive me if something happened on my watch. The irony wasn't lost. The woman who'd stolen from me was now ensuring I ate regularly. Perhaps redemption was possible, but by November I could barely get out of bed. The room spun when I stood, hands shaking so badly I couldn't hold a coffee cup. My reflection showed a gaunt stranger with hollow cheeks and yellowed skin. Tuesday evening, Alec found me collapsed in my hallway, unconscious beside the phone I'd been trying to reach. The ambulance ride passed in a blur of sirens and concerned voices. As paramedics worked over me, I heard one radio ahead. 67-year-old male, severe dehydration, possible poisoning symptoms. ETA 5 minutes. The last thing I remembered before losing consciousness was Nicole's voice in the distance, speaking to Alec with perfect concern. I don't understand how this happened. He seemed fine when I brought him soup this afternoon. Even through my fading awareness, something about her tone struck me as wrong. Too controlled, too practiced. But darkness claimed me before I could process the thought. The fluorescent lights of Grady Hospital burned my eyes as consciousness slowly returned. My throat felt raw, and tubes seemed to be connected to every part of my body. Through the haze of medication, I heard voices, urgent, professional, concerned. "Mr. Knox, can you hear me?" A woman in scrubs leaned over my bed, her expression serious. "I'm Dr. Richardson. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. I tried to speak, but only managed to croak. She held a cup of ice chips to my lips. The blood test came back. She continued, glancing at a chart. "Mr. Knox, you've been systematically poisoned with arsenic over several weeks. This wasn't accidental. Someone has been deliberately trying to kill you." The words hit me like ice water. Arsenic. Nicole's homemade meals, her insistence on heating everything herself, her grandmother's special herb blend. The caring daughter-in-law routine had been a murder plot. "We've already contacted the police," Dr. Richardson said. "Detective Williams will want to speak with you as soon as you're stable." Within hours, my hospital room filled with investigators. Detective Williams, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, pulled up a chair beside my bed, while crime scene technicians photographed the meal containers Nicole had left in my refrigerator. "Mr. Knox, we need you to walk us through Nicole's visits over the past month," she said, recorder in hand. Every detail could be crucial. As I recounted Nicole's Tuesday and Friday routine, Detective Williams nodded grimly. "The timing matches perfectly with your arsenic levels. She was giving you just enough to make you sick, but not enough to kill you quickly." "Why would she want to—" I began, but the detective held up her hand. "Kenneth Brooks from your son's company called us yesterday. He's been tracking some suspicious financial activity. It seems Nicole has been preparing to disappear with a substantial amount of money." The investigation moved with startling speed. By afternoon, search warrants had been executed at Nicole's home. Detective Williams returned with evidence bags containing rat poison measuring spoons and a notebook with what appeared to be dosage calculations written in Nicole's handwriting. "She kept records," Detective Williams said, showing me photocopies. "Dates amounts your reactions. This was premeditated attempted murder." Meanwhile, Kenneth Brooks had been monitoring the company accounts. He called Detective Williams directly when he noticed unusual activity. "She's liquidating everything," he reported. "Emptied the joint savings account, maxed out credit lines, even cashed in Alec's retirement funds. We're talking about over $48,000. The net was closing, but Nicole had already realized it. According to neighbors, she'd left her house Tuesday night, with several suitcases, telling anyone who asked that she was visiting her sick mother in Florida. Airport security footage told a different story. TSA cameras captured Nicole at Hartsfield-Jackson Wednesday morning, attempting to board a flight to the Cayman Islands, with 2 carry-on bags that set off every metal detector in the terminal. The cash was sewn into the lining of her luggage, Detective Williams explained later. $48,300 in various denominations. She'd planned this escape route for weeks. When they arrested her at the gate, Nicole's composure finally shattered completely. Security footage showed her screaming at the officers, insisting she was innocent, claiming I had driven her to desperation with my suspicious nature and constant accusations. "He made me do this," she sobbed to the arresting officers. "That old man never trusted me, never gave me a chance. He forced me into this corner." Even facing attempted murder charges, she couldn't accept responsibilities for her actions. From my hospital bed, I watched the evening news coverage with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The anchorwoman's voice was steady as she reported, "Local woman arrested at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, attempting to flee the country with nearly $50,000 in stolen funds. Nicole Knox faces charges of attempted murder and elder financial abuse." The footage showed Nicole being led away from the airport terminal, in handcuffs, her designer clothes wrinkled, her perfect hair disheveled, her mask of respectability finally stripped away. This was the real Nicole, not the caring daughter-in-law she'd pretended to be, but a calculating predator who'd tried to murder me for money. As the machines monitoring my recovery beeped steadily, I realized that surviving Nicole's poison was only the beginning. Now came the harder task, learning to heal both physically and emotionally from the betrayal of someone I'd tried to trust. 3 days later, the fog in my mind began to lift. The steady rhythm of machines had become familiar, and I could finally stay awake for more than a few minutes. That's when I noticed Alec. He was slumped in the chair beside my bed, unshaven, and wearing the same wrinkled shirt from yesterday. His laptop sat closed on the windowsill, business calls forgotten. Dark circles under his eyes told the story of sleepless nights spent watching over me. "Son," I whispered, voice still hoarse. His head snapped up, relief flooding his features. "Dad, thank God. How are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck. How long have you been here?" "Since they brought you in." He leaned forward, gripping the bed rail. "Dad, I can't believe I almost lost you. And it's my fault. I brought her into our lives." The anguish in his voice broke my heart. I could see the crushing guilt he carried, not just fear for my life, but responsibility for Nicole's betrayal. "Alec, look at me." I reached for his hand. "This is not your fault. Nicole fooled both of us. She was a professional manipulator. But I should have seen the signs," he said, voice breaking. "The shopping, the lifestyle changes how she always volunteered to handle anything involving you. She was counting on that. Predators study their prey, son. They learn exactly what we want to believe." Over the following weeks, as my body slowly expelled the arsenic, Alec and I talked more deeply than we had in years. He told me about the financial damage, how Nicole had drained accounts and damaged business relationships. "I've had to let 3 employees go," he admitted one afternoon. "But Kenneth Brooks has been incredible, helping rebuild our financial controls. Several clients actually increased contracts when they heard what happened. People respect integrity. Your business will recover because you're honest. Dr. Richardson warned my recovery would be gradual. The arsenic had affected my liver, kidneys, and nervous system. Some days I felt strong enough to walk hospital corridors. Others I could barely lift my head. But the hardest part wasn't physical. It was learning to trust again. Every meal a nurse brought made me anxious. Every unexpected visitor triggered suspicion. Nicole had poisoned more than my body. She'd poisoned my faith in people's motives. "I understand now why you were always careful about money," Alex said during one evening conversation. "Growing up, I thought you were overly cautious, but you knew financial security meant independence, dignity. Your mother taught me that. She used to say the most dangerous people are those who smile while they steal from you." As my strength returned, Alec and I began discussing the future. The company was stabilizing, but something had changed in both of us. The experience had stripped away illusions about wealth and success, revealing what truly mattered. "Dad, I've been thinking," Alex said one evening as we watched sunset through my hospital window. "Maybe we should use this experience to help other people. There must be thousands of elderly people being taken advantage of by family members." The idea resonated deeply. All those nights lying awake wondering how many other seniors were suffering in silence, trusting the wrong people. "What did you have in mind?" "A foundation, legal support, financial counseling, education about elder abuse. We could call it the Knox Foundation for Elder Protection." I felt tears gathering, not from sadness but from pride. My son had emerged from this nightmare not bitter or broken, but determined to transform our pain into purpose. "Why, I think that's exactly what we should do," I said, squeezing his hand. "Your mother would be proud of the man you've become." For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt genuinely hopeful about the future. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of a renovated office building in downtown Atlanta, watching volunteers arrange chairs for our first community meeting. The Knox Foundation for Elder Protection had grown from a hospital room conversation into something neither Alec nor I had imagined possible. "Dad, the Channel 11 news crew just arrived," Alex said, straightening his tie. He looked healthier than he had in years, the stress lines replaced by purposeful energy. The foundation had started small, just Alec, myself, and Kenneth Brooks, working out of Alec's office. When Linda Crawford joined as our legal counsel, we realized we could help far more people than originally planned. Our first case came through Kenneth's church, an 80-year-old widow whose grandson had been forging checks for months. Then a retired teacher whose daughter had convinced him to sign over power of attorney, only to sell his house and disappear. Each story echoed the manipulation we'd experienced with Nicole. That's when I knew I had to share my story publicly. The first time I spoke at St. Mark's Baptist Church, my hands shook as I approached the podium. But when I saw elderly faces in the congregation nodding in recognition, some wiping away tears, I found my voice. Word spread quickly through Atlanta's senior community. Within 3 months, we were fielding calls from across Georgia. The foundation provided free legal consultations, financial planning services, and support groups. More importantly, we gave people permission to speak up, to ask questions, to demand accountability. Local media began covering our work. Channel 2's investigative team did a 3-part series on elder abuse featuring my story. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran a Sunday feature that brought donations from across the Southeast. Nicole's trial had concluded quietly during my recovery. She'd pleaded guilty to attempted murder and elder abuse charges, receiving a 15-year prison sentence. I felt no satisfaction in her punishment, only sadness for a life that could have been spent building instead of destroying. The recognition came unexpectedly. Mayor Johnson's office called on a Thursday morning, informing me I'd been selected for Atlanta's Distinguished Citizen Award. The ceremony was held at City Hall, with Alec, Kenneth, Linda, and dozens of foundation supporters in attendance. Drew Knox represents the best of our city's spirit, Mayor Johnson said as he presented the award. He transformed personal tragedy into community service. As I stood at the podium, looking out at faces from our support groups and partner organizations, I thought about the journey that brought me here. 6 months ago, I was a victim, I said into the microphone. Today, I'm an advocate. The difference isn't in what happened to me, but in what I chose to do about it. I paused, seeing Alec in the front row, eyes bright with pride. If you suspect someone is taking advantage of an elderly person in your life, don't wait. Speak up. Because silence protects predators, but truth protects families. The applause was warm and sustained, but what moved me most were the individuals who approached afterward, seniors who'd found courage to report suspicious activity, family members ready to have difficult conversations, volunteers joining our cause. As I drove home that evening, the Distinguished Citizen Award beside me, I realized Nicole had failed in ways she'd never know. She'd tried to destroy me, but instead had given me a purpose that would outlast us both. The fight to protect vulnerable seniors was just beginning. Looking back on this journey, I've learned that betrayal stories like mine aren't just personal trials, they're lessons meant to be shared. When I tell other grandpa stories at our foundation meetings, I see the same pattern. Trust broken, faith tested, but ultimately strength discovered. God works in mysterious ways. When I was eating from church food pantries, I thought God had forgotten me. When Nicole was slowly poisoning me, I wondered if God was testing my faith. But now I understand God was preparing me for something greater. He used my darkest moments to create light for others facing similar deceptions. The truth is that evil often wears a familiar face, speaks with a loving voice, and promises to help while it destroys. But I've also learned that resilience lives within each of us, waiting to be awakened by necessity. Nicole thought she was dealing with a helpless old man. She discovered instead that wisdom and determination don't diminish with age, they deepen. Through our foundation work, I've heard countless grandpa stories of survival and triumph. Each betrayal story reminds me that speaking up isn't just about protecting ourselves, it's about protecting the next victim. When we stay silent about abuse, we become unwitting accomplices to predators. My message is simple. Trust your instincts, document everything, and never let shame prevent you from seeking help. These betrayal stories teach us that family bonds should protect, not exploit. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me about your own experiences or thoughts on family trust. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Together we can build a community that protects our most vulnerable members and ensures no senior suffers in silence.